Greetings, fellow survivor! With Alpha 18 dropping this weekend, at least for the stream team, and I guess Sunday, Monday for everyone else, there are a lot of things to discuss and go through. I wanted to take some time to go through the official release notes, as you can see up on the screen, and I will leave the link in the description as well, to go through some of the changes, some of the features, some of the modifications and new things that they are putting in. Before I do that, I wanted to thank everyone for the great support over the entire Alpha 17 cycle that everyone have been showing me in my channel. I do appreciate it very, very much. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. And I hope to provide you a lot of new interesting videos as well during Alpha 18. I got a lot of things planned out, covering game mechanics to the new blocks, new items to, yeah, pretty much everything there is. Base building, zombie mechanics, and what have you. So do make sure to subscribe to my channel if you haven't, and if you have, thank you very much. Join my Discord, follow me on Twitter and all of that as well. So as you can see, there is a stream weekend that hopefully you've been checking out as well. But let's go down into the release notes. The first thing to cover is the whole XP earning and the balancing, and they do mention that as well, that there was Alpha 17 was really the version where you had to kill zombies in order to progress. Because all the perks were, well, for one, you had to unlock perks to craft anything, but a lot of things were level gated as well, which means that you had to seek out and kill the zombies. Previous versions, I generally would only kill zombies if I had to. Alpha 17, I was asking for more zombies, screamer hordes, wandering hordes, blood moon hordes, and killing them myself, and not even letting my traps do it because I needed the experience so that I could level up, get new perks, and craft new things. Otherwise you couldn't progress in the game. They have been changing that one to, as you can see, balancing up not just killing zombies, but completing quests, harvesting resources, mining, upgrading blocks, etc, etc. So hopefully this is going to be a lot better. Next thing that was really contentious during at least the early part of Alpha 17 was the stamina. It was really punishing. You would run 50 meters and you would and you couldn't fight, you couldn't do anything, and they were reducing that across Alpha 17, so it was better towards the end, but they've been doing further tweaks here in order to work better, and hopefully this is something that just makes it smoother. They were, for instance, having now perk boots for reward stamina for kills, and they've changed Encumbrance. You have a larger backpack in new games, so yeah, this should actually be a pretty good change. Just make it a little bit more forgiving, which makes it more fun ultimately. The game is in alpha, it's in early access, so spending too much time on optimization generally is not done, but we did have the issue that they recognized that performance in Alpha 17 was worse than Alpha 16, and of course that causes a lot of problems because not everyone has a new system every new alpha. So they've been spending time on that. They've been doing the occlusion system, which helps that the system doesn't draw things or doesn't calculate everything that you can't see. If you're looking at a wall, it shouldn't be rendering or trying to render things that are behind because you can't see it. So that should help. Garbage collection, collision mesh, etc, etc. All these are things that you don't have to understand. Just it is something they've been working with, and hopefully they continue during the whole Alpha 18 to make it smoother and optimizing things that are causing issues for the community. We now come to the zombie balance. If you've been playing Alpha 17, you will notice that every PUI is pretty much a dungeon PUI where it's a one-bedroom apartment and there are 30 zombies in there. Or there's a small house with maybe 2 or 3 bedrooms and there's like 30 zombies inside it in the basement, in the main building, and in the attic. It makes you wonder if they had a lot of friends and family over when the zombie apocalypse hit, because there were so many zombies, and that caused a problem because it was a little bit weird to go into every building and there's just so many zombies. And of course, because they increase over the game stage as well, becoming feral and radiated, it meant that exploring was not as interesting. So they do specifically mention they'll be creating 30 new smaller PUIs. They call them remnants, and these are going to be like the abandoned houses that you could have seen in previous versions where there must maybe 1 or 2 or maybe no zombies at all. I think they had a little bit of this in Alpha 17, but there was so few, and they're going to be a lot more in Alpha 17, and they mentioned that there's going to be more in future builds. So hopefully this makes exploration a little bit more forgiving, at least early game, where you can at least find a building, take it over, fortify, and stay the night, as opposed to, well, you can't do that because there are 30 zombies inside that you have to kill first. Attribute balancing, and this connects to all the perks and all the skill that you have. It's one of the things that we saw on Alpha 17, that people tended to use strength because, well, grinding resources was important, and you need a strength for that. Carrying things, you need a strength for that. So a lot of people were very strength focused. You were also intellect focused because, well, otherwise you couldn't really craft traps or do your barter, make your mini bike and all those things. So they have been rebalancing this one and spreading out the attributes and the perks across, I believe, the strength, fortitude, perception, and intellect, so that it's a viable option to go deeper into any of these one with their own special gun, special playstyle. How this plays out, we will have to really see in the game, because there might be a lot more tweaks that are needed. But I like they've been doing that to sort of spread out the player styles, because it shouldn't be that, well, you have to perk into a certain way in order to play the game and anything else doesn't work. And that was the problem previously. And you also see that now you're going to gain 1 health point and stamina per player level instead of increasing with attributes. And I think that makes it a little bit more, I guess, organic growth. If you're level 100, you're going to have extra. If you're level 50, you're going to get extra, but less. And it's not specifically having to unlock perks. There are a lot of gameplay changes as well. They mention here the item changes. And whereas previously, the quality of the items were pretty much based on the intellect perk that you had, an attribute. Now it's going to be based on the perk tree that it's affected by. So things that are being crafted under the strength is not going to be affected by the intellect. It's going to be based on the particular perk tree that you are speccing into. And you're going to see that same for intellect. If you're doing, I think the stun baton is going to be based on that. If you're making, I think, an LMG, I think that might be fortitude. So that's going to be based on the fortitude. So it's going to be more spread out. If you are the smartest person with top intellect, it doesn't mean you're going to craft everything in the game up to the best quality. It's only going to be the things that are within the intellect tree itself. They've also been changing that you can only craft up to blue quality. So you can't make the purple. You have to find those. So exploring is definitely going to be needed. They also highlight that you need item scrap, such as shotgun parts, etc., to craft them. So you have to do that as well. And let's see what else. And the item quality influences damage and armor rating. And some of these things are randomized. Or it mentions all the weapons and armor have random stats, and I believe that is for when you are looting it. When you're crafting, it's all going to be the same, but if you're looting it, you could find a very good blue quality item or really a bad one, of course, within a certain range. So blue weapon is, even if it's a bad one, it's going to be better than, say, a yellow item, but you could still get a blue one that is really good, and that might be better than a really bad purple, for instance. There's going to be a range there. Schematics. So this is really a major thing that they've been doing. And in a nutshell, you will be able to unlock crafting through just the perks as usual that we did in Alpha 17, but you'll also be able to unlock them through schematics, which is what we did back in, pre-Alpha 15 and 16. We could find these books and schematics and learn the perks. So if you don't care about a whole perk tree and you just find something, you can still craft it. If you have the perk, I believe there are a lot of additional benefits, such as if you learn the forge crafting from the intellect by a perk, then you'll have, say, 20% faster crafting. If you learn it from a book, you can still craft the forge, but you won't be faster in crafting items there. So there is some benefit to having the perk rather than just having the schematic to craft that item. Armor changes. A lot of people don't really use armor, but one thing that is difficult to balance, and I think they realized that as well, and I've talked about that in the past, is that if you allow your basic armor to be then modified by mods, plus be modified by your perks, it means that you sort of get a really wide range of armor rating. And I think that what it means that if you have everything the best, your damage taken from any attack is going to be really, really low. So what they have done is that they've removed all the armor perks as far as armor rating. It still offers some protection against, let's say, what does it say? Bleeding and stun protection. But it means that you don't have a perk that is making the armor rating better. It just makes you less likely to bleed and stun. So this means that it should be a much more controlled environment where you have the armor rating based on the armor, maybe some armor mods as well, but that's it. It doesn't get further modified by having some perk, and hopefully that makes it a little bit better balanced. I think this is one of the issues that we had in Alpha 17 as well, that early on armor was really not very useful because you also hadn't perked up in it. And by the time you do perk up into it, you probably want to use iron, steel, or maybe military armor. Encumbrance. In Alpha 17, we ended up having, I think it was 2 or 3 rows where you started getting Encumbrance if you haven't unlocked the Pack Mule perk. They are changing that to removing a whole row of Encumbrance, which means that it should be a lot more forgiving. And with the pocket mods that you can craft, that will make another difference in that you can put them on your clothing items and on your gear, so you don't necessarily need to have the Pack Mule perk. You can just have a lot of pockets and everything. And if you remember from Alpha 17, there were some specific pockets, but now you can craft them, and that'll just make it more accessible. So hopefully, carrying too much is going to be less of an issue now. Oh, and here's a big one, and this is the one thing that I know there are people who stopped playing the game because they got so frustrated. Alpha 17 was potentially really punishing because you died and then you had a half an hour of death penalty. And that was really painful because you load your attributes, health and stamina, and that meant of half an hour is really difficult to play the game, or more difficult, because you simply cannot do things you normally can. So people tended to not actively play because you wanted to sort of wait it out, unless of course you were really late game and you really had good gear anyway. And that was a problem because it wasn't very fun. You want to get back into the game. You don't want to sit around for half an hour until the death penalty vanishes. For me, I remember it was always a problem because I die. I want to then perk up and I can't because I have the death penalty, so I can't quite see where I am, what my attributes are. Together with this, they've changed such that if a player dies during a Blood Moon Hordes, the zombies will no longer know where you are until you re-engage the enemy. Which means that if you're out fighting outside of your base, you die, you respawn in your base, the enemy will not be attracted to you until you start shooting them or showing your face. So if you just hunker down, you can wait out the horde, go grab your stuff in the morning, and there might be some stragglers around still, but at least they won't be attacking your base wave by wave. And I think that's a good change because it makes it a little bit easier. If you want to fight them, go ahead. If you don't want to, just hunker down and wait. There's also some changes to the noise detection, and bleeding does less damage per second. I think they're trying to make it a little bit more accessible and not just so punishing, which some of these things actually were. So looking at melee in 7 Days to Die is not necessarily a lot of fun. If you have a little bit of lag, it's a problem. And whereas in Alpha 16, I think that every time you bash something, say with your club and machete to some degree, it was calculating if the zombie was within a sphere of your club hit. What seemed to have happened in Alpha 17 is that they required a pinpoint accuracy. So fairly often, you would bash at a zombie, it would move its head slightly, and a zombie behind would get hit because he happened to be, well, where the crosshair was. And that's a really weird mechanic because you end up missing the zombie even though he's literally right in front of you and the club is passing through him. So they've been changing this by having glancing blows, which means that, and I mentioned here, if you miss with the crosshairs, you can still hit enemies along the arc of their weapon swing for less damage. And I think this will be a big thing that just makes it more realistic. So if you're swinging your weapon, you might not hit exactly where you wanted to, but at least you're getting some damage because, well, obviously it's hitting him. They also mentioned that they've improved the melee sounds, and I recall seeing a little bit of this when Manuel was showing off the baseball bat. It gave a better thunk, and I think that was again, it's nice. You want to have a good audio feedback from when you're hitting the zombies. Animation polish, again, makes the game look a little bit smooth, a little bit nice. It doesn't change the gameplay very much, but I guess it makes it look a little bit better. And let's think a little bit about music and ambient music. So personally, I love games where you have some ambient sounds and music that sort of sets the tone. And, I can look at Subnautica as a good experience, Empyrean as well. There are some games out there. No Man's Sky also has good sort of ambient music where you get pulled into the sort of the feeling of being there. 7 Days to Die has been really quiet. There are some ambient sounds of maybe wind blowing or, zombie noises at night, I believe. But it hasn't really been very much beyond that. And they have been putting in their DMS, their dynamic music system, which should help with that by playing different tunes that are sort of dynamically created. And specifically how that turns out, we'll be able to experience that ourselves, but you can actually tweak that. And if you want to have a lot of it, you just turn it up. If you want to have less or none, you turn it off. So we can tweak this to our own preference, but I think and I hope they will make the game feel a lot more engaging. And they do mention that it's only when the players exploring the world, but they do intend to broaden it into suspense and combat and trader music, meaning sort of depending on where you are and what you're doing. I'm really excited about this because it'll make the game feel a lot more alive. But please, Fun Pimps, can you guys put in an MP3 player, maybe a video player TV? That would be good. If you've been playing the game a lot, you might have noticed that earlier alphas, you were fairly scared to get hit and injured because you could get infected. And then that vanished. I believe in 17.4, you can't even get infected anymore. They have brought this back, and they've been changing it such that you get slightly infected, the infection grows. If you take, honey, herbal antibiotics, and antibiotics, the infection will gradually subside. So you have to sort of balance that to pop a few of them if you get very, very infected. And if it goes up to 100, you die. And I think that it is a zombie game. If you're not afraid of infection, something is wrong. And I might even wonder whether they should make this more aggressive, such that if it happens, you're going to be scrambling for antibiotics, you're going to be suffering from it, and you're going to be sort of, if you don't have the antibiotics, you're going to be out raiding for it or trading for it because you really need it to survive. It is a zombie game after all. Dysentery and food poisoning is another thing that I remember in a previous version where I drank, it was murky water. I got dysentery 1. I thought, I know, it's okay. It's just going to be 2 hours. So I was like waiting it out, trying to move slowly because I thought that, hey, once the dysentery 1 is done, I'm fine. No, it turned into dysentery 2, which was even worse. And then you die. So it was definitely an experience, and make sure you boil the water. In Alpha 17, not that I drank unpure water, but you rarely got sick. You didn't get really any food poisoning except once in a while from canned food. So they've been changing this such that now canned food does not give you a chance to contract food poisoning, but everything else could. And it causes you to throw up, and you're going to lose a lot of the food that you've been eating. So you just have to eat more. And that in turn means that you're going to go through your food stores faster. We'll see how that turns out. Stun system, again, they sort of highlighted that if you have armor, the chance of getting stunned is going to be reduced greatly. If you've been watching Madmole's playthroughs, you'll be noticing that a lot of the icons have changed. So hopefully they look better, higher resolution, sharper. I've also been covering a lot of the schematics, and I believe about half of these ones, this book series. So they have a lot more than that. I finished with, I believe, the Wasteland Treasure, which was the last one they were showing off. But as you can see, there's now 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of them out there. And again, there's going to be a lot of different kinds of items you can craft, different benefits, sniper, shotgun. Of course, some of these you can tell. This obviously is archer damage and everything. This is for mining. So there's going to be a lot of books out there that you want to read because they'll give you some minor perks, and together they all add up. And there's also some crafting that is being unlocked based on some books. New weapons. If you see my Let's Plays, you'll know that I love to have new weapons to play with, and I always install Jake's firearms, and mainly because, well, you get more. We'll have spears. We have the junk turret. We have a stun baton, baseball bat, new sledgehammers, including the stone one, which is good. M60, oh, doesn't hurt. Knuckle wraps, brass knuckles, spike knuckles. Again, you want to go toe to toe? Well, knuckle to knuckle, go ahead. Double barrel shotgun, new explosives, new bows, new ammunition, HP, high, shouldn't it be HE, high explosive? I don't know what that means. Hollow point, and armor piercing, which can pierce through enemies. And again, all this is really nice. We'll have to try them out and see, so how do they really work? But I'm really excited to get new weapons. Thrown items, and actually I didn't know this, but after reading, I sort of can understand what the problem was, where thrown items were moved by the server. So if you're playing, the server was moving everything, which made it look really, really weird on the client unless you were sitting really close to the server, because there were a lot of updates that were not really synced up. So they fixed that, and they've changed up the thrown items and just make it easier to work, such as Molotovs not setting on fire, which will be thankful because I always did that. The terrain, distant terrain and all that has also been improved. So they have a new terrain shader. They have a new distant terrain. I didn't know that was part of Unity, but again, good. They'll make it look better in the distance. So we've gone from where you had that fog out like 100 blocks from where you are and couldn't see anything, to see the landscape, seeing the buildings, to seeing the trees. And now they're going to make it better looking. And I love this because, again, that helps you get that immersion. When you're up on a mountain, you're looking out, you can see what's there, and I love that feeling, especially maybe as the sun goes up or down, at dusk or at nightfall. Ooh, and one thing that I am not sure how contentious this one is going to be because it was extremely contentious in Alpha 17. They had a lot of problems with this in Alpha 17, and they went through, I think, 2 or 3 different versions in 17.0, 1, 2, and 3, and 4, where it was never just quite right. Hopefully, the random world generation is much better now and looks better, fits better, straight roads, still has hills and mountains and everything, and don't have this really weird duplicate POIs or having roads that just dead end into sort of the side of a mountain or just off a mountain. Hopefully this looks better. It seems to be in every of the versions, they do spend quite a lot of effort on the POIs, which I think was really nice for Alpha 17 because we got a lot of new POIs that looked really good. So they do mention having re-imaged dozens of the older ones, and they've created many new ones, and you can see some of them here, and it's going to be nice to see really how do they look, what's the difference in the dungeon, have it been make them a little bit more accessible. One thing that I hope they've been doing is to, as part of the rebalancing their existing POIs, that they've been making them a little bit more, I guess, realistic. Not just some of the problem I had with POIs in Alpha 17 is that we always had loose floorboards that you fell through into the basement where there were a lot of zombies, or you had a lot of zombies up in the attic falling down on you, even though there was no real way for the zombies to get up there. But it was always there, so it was almost too predictable and just really weird. You go into a building and like 5-10 zombies just fall down because, well, of course, they want to scare you. And it just doesn't make sense all the time. Once or twice, 3, 4, yes, but not every single time when you get into a building that you go like, yep, there's definitely a false floor that I'm going to fall through. If it gets overused, it just gets too repetitive. Reflections has been changing. Don't know. I always turn it off because it does decrease my FPS, but maybe I'll try it on and see. Maybe the new change is not reducing FPS too much. Another thing that could be contentious is this whole Aya and the zombie thing. So to the good things, let's start with that. They've added a coyote and a mountain lion. Really good. They've added demolition zombie. They have the new rage mode of the zombies, which is really good. You damage them, they might start moving faster, such as rushing you. Send sounds is nice. They've been changing how the hostile AI reacts to noise and not going directly to the exact position. Ragdolling, the zombies fight the bears. Some of these things which will just make it smoother. So a couple of things here, and specifically the demolition zombie. This one is something that I'm glad that they put in, but we'll have to see how its explosive charge pans out. It is supposed to be doing a lot of damage, and my concern is that you end up losing your base all the time, doing a lot of damage to your traps and everything that just forces you to spend a lot of time to repair. I hope not. I hope it's balanced, but again, we'll see how it is. Vehicles, making it more realistic so you can see them when you are doing multiplayer. They fall more accurately, and riders take falling damage, which means you can't just get up on top of a mountain or top of a skyscraper and fall off while riding it without taking damage, so that's good. And interesting about the vehicle UI, locking your passcode tracker was improved. We'll see how it is. I personally wish they had added vehicle mods, meaning colors or better engine or better tires and everything, but that's slated for, I believe, Alpha 19, so we have to wait for that. So mining has been overhauled. Mining is something that has been a challenge for them to get right and get just feeling good. On previous versions, we had these small piles of resource, be it, maybe nitrate or being lead, that we could mine. That was removed because we should be following the gravel down to the ore veins, and sampling the gravel allowed us to see which ore veins were below. But again, it made mining a little bit tedious. We always had the boulders, but now they're adding a new 3D surface boulders of each ore type that identifies what ores can be found below. It's not for all of them, but I think it will mean that if you really are looking for nitrate or looking for coal, if you just drive around, you'll be able to see them. And you're going to see that below they're going to be an ore vein of that material that you can mine out. And I think it means that we'll be spending more time just mining as opposed to just spending just countless hours trying to find these ores. And even though you might say, hey, it is a game that you should be exploring, but it is kind of boring to just be digging holes everywhere just to find the correct ore you're looking for. If you're running a server, there's going to be changes here. Some of these are going to help with the memory performance. You're going to see a change to a bedroll expire, and this is, I think, connected to one of the bedroll fix, where in Alpha 17 and previously, there were a lot of times where the bedroll would go inactive. And it's further down in the list, but basically they had it tied to the land claim block setting, which they have removed, but now they have a bedroll expiry time, which will help instead. So you can set it on your server depending on what settings you want to have. But at least hopefully this fixes the bedroll problem. There is further modding support, and if you do modding, I'm sure you're going to be happy that they're continually working on this. There seems to be some changes in how they're dealing with item icons, and this obviously changes how the mod pack is sort of constructed in the folder structure. But hopefully all this makes it easier for the modders and gives us a lot more cool things to play around with. And there is a really long changelog, so I'm not going to go through all of it, but I'm going to touch on just a few specific ones. 1. Powered vault door and vault hatch. Finally, we'll be able to connect it to, let's say, motion sensor and have them open as we get close. And this is really nice. Same thing with new craftable pair lights. Remember Alpha 16, we had, I think, 5 something lights. Alpha 17, we had 1. Now we're back to at least 3 plus 4, I think. So we should have 4 different craftable player lights. Really nice. But have the power doors and bridges, really nice. Again, it's the same as the powered vault door and vault hatch. I don't know why they mentioned it again here. This is power doors and the powered vault door. I think it's the same thing. But again, ultimately, hatches, doors, and bridges, the drawbridges are going to be controlled by electricity. I think it's a specific one, so it's not the normal one. So there's going to be one normal one that we have now, plus one specific one that is powered. Another good change is that the traders now will have vehicle parts for sale, and you can also be able to buy complete vehicles. So if you don't want to spec into intellect to craft them, you can just buy the vehicle parts and put them together, or just buy the whole vehicle if you have enough money. And finally, one pretty cool thing is that there's a minimum zombie dismemberment chance on death of 50% or 30% for heads. What I believe this is, if you're striking a killing blow, the chance of dismembering and getting sort of a spray of blood or something is much higher, which means that you'll be slashing off arms or legs or heads. That will make, I guess it's much more rewarding when you kill the zombie or destroy the zombie. He's already dead. So do go have a look yourself and read through. There might be some other tidbits that you pick out that are of note, and if you find any really nice one, please let me know in the comment section below as well, and I will again leave the link in the description. Hopefully we'll be getting into Alpha 18 during the next week, hopefully by Monday, and we'll be enjoying and trying all these things out ourselves as well. So I'll definitely be putting out probably daily videos for a while in Alpha 18, so do make sure you come back and check out the videos. Have a great one.
Special thanks to the great patrons supporting the channel. If you would like to join the vetted community and support these videos, do follow the Patreon link.